Jane, thank you for being part of our Who Not Do series. For those of you who don't know Jane Slater, she's a reporter on the NFL Network who has the latest scoop on the Cowboys always. But we're going to go a little deeper. So let's dive right in. Who would you say has inspired you the most in your life, whether it's sports related, not related, and why?
I would say my grandfather. He passed away about 10 years ago, but he grew up with two deaf parents and had two brothers and sisters, or had a brother and a sister, and they spent a lot of their time at the Maryland School for the Deaf. He didn't go to college, neither did his siblings, but all of them were incredibly successful. He ended up working for Quaker Oats and had a lot to do with actually the Aunt Jemima campaign. Uh, he didn't come up with it, but he helped obviously one of the um, iterations of Aunt Jemima in sort of their marketing launch. And then Wolf Brand Chili was a big uh, chili company down here in the Southwest, and that was sort of his baby. So I was just always incredibly proud of him to see what he was able to accomplish. And my big motto is come to me with solutions, not problems. And he was sort of the king of that. So that is a person that absolutely inspires me.
How would you say everything that's been going on? I mean, 2020 has been literally the craziest year yet.
It's been transformative. I spent 7 weeks in absolute lockdown. I think I saw seven people. I spent a lot of that time. I mean, from waking up in the morning I woke up at 7 a.m. I went to bed at sometimes midnight. I'd started an online journalism school for kids on Zoom before. I never even knew what Zoom was. I reached out to my sister who does the speaker panels for South by Southwest. And I said, teach me Zoom. I feel like I need to learn it. So she walked me through it. And it was sort of this learning curve of onboarding kids that I've never met. In other words, I'm meeting them on Instagram and I'm meeting them on Twitter. And so sort of getting them onboarded and then getting a lot of my friends, it was sort of a Coachella of sports reporting for a little bit. A bunch of my girlfriends came in and they'd pop in and out. And so it was a lot of fun. And I felt like I was like my best version of myself. Every day, my mindset was do something for other people and myself. And then we sort of opened up here in Texas. And I don't know if my reentry is as much as I wanted it to be. I find some of the stuff that I was really committed to, like the working out at home every day, not being as committed to it. I think the uncertainty started to really start hitting me lately as it applied to football, because that's typically our off season. So I was able to work from home and it wasn't too different. But yeah, I think it was transformative and informative, but I also find myself wanting to get back to some of those things that I found myself doing in isolation.
Do you think that would be something that you would like to continue doing? I know it's obviously hard with the season starting up, but that you'd want to continue in the future?
Absolutely. Obviously, it's a big undertaking. Like I said, just the onboarding. I feel like if I had somebody helping me with that, talking to the students is something that I loved. It was more of the busy work of getting everybody in the same room and, interacting with people, because I wanted to verify that they were students. I wanted it to be meaningful and impactful. I didn't want it just to be sports fans sort of crashing the room or not speaking the language that this profession requires. Loving the persistence of, even like, I had a high school senior that just begged me to get in, and I loved the persistence because, as you know, in this field, you have to be persistent. There were certain, I think we ended up reaching over 110. And there were like three that stood out for me. One in particular, I'll never forget. She was in my Zoom and she showed up with the selfie light, full hair and makeup, ready to rock. And is that a big deal? Not necessarily. And I wouldn't hold it against any other student in that room that was working from home and sort of navigating. But to me, it was her showing up. It was her taking the job seriously. They always say dress for the job you want. And I was so impressed with her. And as a matter of fact, I told a lot of them I would look at their resume tapes and help as much as I could. And it's overwhelming when they send you 8-minute resume tapes. I was guilty of 12-minute ones back in the day, because you're so emotionally connected to all your stories. I immediately got to hers because she just stood out to me. But I absolutely love it. I don't know if you've been following this Women Empower Women movement on Instagram. And I've got to be honest, I don't love it. And the reason why I don't love it is it just, to me, is a bunch of girls posting Instagram photos of themselves, which I see on Instagram every day, and then they put it in black and white. I thought it was going to be so much more meaningful to highlight women who've actually empowered you, whether that be your mother or a teacher or a neighbor, or, I had a job since I was 15. It can be when I worked at the grocery store, it could be a grocery store manager. The saddest part for me, and this is taking me back to your original question, the saddest part for me was I had more good, genuine, authentic men along the way that helped me and invested in me and wanted me to authentically succeed than women. I can go down the line and tell you 5 women in leadership roles that didn't promote me, that made comments about my appearances, that were just really catty, and it was really discouraging. And so I think instead of this women empower women, why don't we actually look at each other and say, how are we sabotaging each other? How do we lift each other up? And so I didn't have a lot of those women along the way. And so when I get this opportunity to reach out to these girls, and I say girls, there's guys too, but in sports specifically, there's not as many women willing to pull you up, because once you get to a certain level, the next woman's worried you're going to take her job, because there is an ageism that comes with this business. But I just got so excited seeing their enthusiasm and their excitement, because I felt the exact same way. If I can't even imagine if, Melissa Stark back then, or I could go down the list of women I looked up to, if they had offered a Zoom and I could just see them on the other side of the computer and talk to them, and just feeling like, oh my gosh, somebody that's done it is willing to talk to me. I want to know how you did it. And more importantly, I don't think it's so much about talking about your accomplishments. I think it's talking about your failures, what you didn't do right, and giving you sort of a blueprint, because there are so many landmines in this business that you've got to watch out for. Mm-hmm. And that applies to people that you work with, but also yourself. And especially in this social media age, I think so many young journalists shoot themselves in the foot with this. I'm so glad I don't have my college and early 20s put on Instagram. I get such a joy after, I just want to get a hold of these, a lot of these young journalists, and sort of kind of like Laura, just sort of shake them and be like, all right, you need to listen, do as I say, not as I did. So mm-hmm. I had such an energy and enthusiasm for it. And it's funny, you find yourself, I'll be 40 this year. And I remember talking to reporters and anchors that I've been in this business 10 years, 12 years. And when you're early on, your first market, second market, mm-hmm. God, that sounds like forever. It's been 18 years since I've been doing this now, which is crazy to me. And I'm like a cockroach. You're going to have a hard time killing me off because I've worked so hard to get here. But you do find yourself going, what else do I want to do? And I could absolutely see myself teaching journalism at some point, just because, like I said, I think it's important that you have somebody who you can talk to, because there's so many people in journalism school, and I certainly dealt with them, that you just don't feel like you can have real talk. And mm-hmm. typically you don't want to talk to someone who hasn't done your job. And so there's so many that I want to talk to, especially as this business continues to evolve and change. So that was a long-winded answer to you, but I get very passionate about that in particular. I would say that some of the worst offenses have been some of the women also, who along the way didn't reach a hand down and try to help us up. One of my favorite books is Sheryl Sandberg, Lean In, and it talks a lot about that. We want to vilify so many men and how hard it is to be a woman in this business. But I find, because the numbers are so small, both in leadership and in our ranks, that we don't do a good enough job of developing and helping and looking out for a lot of the others in the field. And I know it's more of the looking out. I think mm-hmm. I've always tried to help girls. I don't know if I've looked out as much or said as much in public to protect young reporters as I should. And I think that's something that I've been very introspective about as of late.
I really appreciate you meeting me. I know
you're
crazy busy.
No, you're totally fine.
This is the craziest time. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Totally fine. Best of luck to you. Stay in touch.
Thank you.